Hello. Second video on the meaning of the third commandment. This time we will have about the spiritual meaning and maybe also the celestial meaning. And I'll start by recalling what we talked about the last video, which was about natural sense. So the natural sense of the Sabbath day is very practical, that we make free time to dedicate it to holy matters, to the eternal life, to meditation, study, receiving instructions, which is actually study, and love to the neighbor, reflection, coming to yourself, that is the natural meaning. You know, we have to prepare, to plan, to schedule it, to put other things apart, even with all the family. All this is the natural meaning of the Sabbath. Okay, so now about the spiritual meaning, I will start by reading Swedenborg. So, quote, "This commandment in the spiritual sense signifies the reformation and regeneration of man by the Lord. 6 days of labor signifies man's combat against the flesh and its lusts, and at the same time against the evils and falsities which are infused into him from hell. And the 7th day signifies his conjunction with the Lord and consequent regeneration. That during such combat man undergoes spiritual labor but enters into rest when he is regenerate. Sorry, forget this last bit. So, and the 7th day signifies his conjunction with the Lord and consequent regeneration. Then he goes in explaining a little bit of it, which is he's quoting from another book, in which he explains very much about what is reformation and what is regeneration. So here he just touches it. Like the work of regeneration is successive, very important. Answering in its several stages to man's conceptions, his formation in the womb, his birth, and his education. So it has stages, which is already related to everything of the life, of the starting of the life of each person. Also, in other places he explains that it is not, a human being doesn't reach regeneration. These stages are not that you can say this person is at stage 5 and this person is at stage 7. However, he explains that for us to understand, but each stage can be concerned with an aspect of a human being. So a human being can be in stage 7 is very advanced and almost nobody reaches it, but can be in stage 5 about some things or a lot of things, but then there is still one aspect, something in which he's in an inferior stage and he has to work at this. So it's never possible from the outside, to make to divide people in a very strict way about that and say you are at this stage and you are at that stage. No, it's successive stages, and it's also in many different aspects of your life that these different stages apply. Now a little bit of explanation. The first act of the new birth, so the first act of when you start this process, is called reformation, which has reference to the understanding. And the second is called regeneration, which has reference to the will and to the understanding in subordination to the will. So things start in paradox. I only remember the Dutch word of what I want to say. In conflict with what many people say about religion, and due to also how religion has been to us, and also that we now come in another stage in which we can use understanding and reason to understand a lot of things which before was not possible. And so so we start with understanding, and before this time Swedenborg would mean that you start with understanding because you start with the teachings which people used to receive, in the church. But in this way now, it's up to you. We start with understanding. You can start reading. You can start thinking about other things differently. With Swedenborg books, you have a lot of understanding to do, and to your utmost satisfaction. And but that is only and so that's the first stage. So it's actually the religious path, the path to God, can absolutely, as a matter of fact, it's even important or even necessary to some people that it goes along the way of understanding, a long way of reason. But then comes the second stage, called regeneration, which has reference to the will. The will is more interior. The will is inside. But even here, it stays the understanding can go together with the will. So it's only that the understanding is in subordination to the will. In other places, Swedenborg goes very deep into this, into explaining will and understanding. It's actually very beautiful because we live in a time a little bit strange about lots of people are attacked because of ego, and sometimes the people with the most ego are the ones who attack the people about having ego, and that mistakes made therein take the will away from people, while the will is actually, there is nothing wrong with the will. The internal man is first to be reformed, and by this the external. Again, so that is a very different thing than the Christianity as we had it, which actually many times is certainly starts by the external. If you go to the Mass, or if you go to the service on Sundays, and if you say that you believe in Jesus, and if you take baptism, that's it. And that's very much comparable with only the external. So the internal man is first to be reformed, and by this external. Then what happens then? A combat then commences between the internal man and the external man, and whichever conquers has dominion over the other. This is, very important. Swedenborg is always talking about the people who are only Christians on the external side, which means not to be Christian. And even if we say, there is nothing wrong with it, there is nothing, you did all that you could, but now these people can look further, use their understanding to move further, because many things of in Christianity, and that's one of the reasons that creates many people, creates a movement against it, creates many people turning against it, or being even allergic, or hating it, and saying all kind of things which are not true about it. And one of the reasons is this, that it is either it stays on the surface, it is only on the surface, only on the external man, while often the internal man is opposite to the external man, to the convictions which are only on a superficial level. So it is, and also other people who search for spirituality, who want spirituality, because of this, they think that they only find then in Buddhism, because, for instance, Tibetan Buddhism, this is meditation, so they go a lot about internal man, and so then they reject Jesus, or they reject the truth of Christ because of that. While actually, in true Christianity, there is this reformation and regeneration of the internal man. The reason why the reformation and regeneration of man are signified in a spiritual sense by this third commandment is because they coincide with the labors and combats of the Lord against the hells, and with his victory over them, and the rest into which he then entered. We talked about this yesterday in the other video, but why I read it is because then he explains the Lord reforms and regenerates man and makes him spiritual after the same method as that by which he glorified his humanity and made it divine. So in the same way, our humanity has to be made divine. And that can only be done when we do our part, and we want and let, because as you know, because Jesus never does anything without you wanting it, and Jesus helps and reforms and regenerates this person, which is equivalent to making your humanity divine. So, resuming the essential of the spiritual meaning of the third commandment is that it means regeneration, it means reformation and regeneration. So at the natural level we have about the practical things and the labor to the love to the neighbor, and the practical things and receiving teachings, studying, even meditating. On a spiritual level it means really this when it happens. It means the reformation, which is so the 6 days, the fight, and the 7th day, the regeneration. So it means what is not when we start for coming Saturday, or you organize it and you start it over 3 weeks to make that, it's not happened yet, but so its spiritual meaning is when the reality that it exists and when it is happening, when it is going to happen, that you go through the process of reformation spiritually and you are working at it. And the 7th day symbolizes when you conquered, then you are regenerate. I hope it is clear. I do this of putting my finger to turn the page, and I didn't remember to not to do it again. So I think that, not to make the video too long, I'm going to stop, and I will have about the celestial meaning of the third commandment in another video. Until next time. And again, I ask you, please let me know if you find anything of interest in this. Goodbye.